Alright, welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. I'm going to be talking about my channel for the next couple minutes, so if you don't want to hear that and you want to go straight into how, as a 6-year-old child, I went to jail and got butt by a 6'5" black man, I'll left the timestamp in the video. You can totally just go and do that. But for some reason, if you actually do care about my channel, listen up. So listen, I've been getting a lot of comments recently on my videos saying, post more, why don't you post more? And listen, here's the reason why I only post once a week. Believe it or not, these videos of me talking about stories of my beyond up life, or just videos where I go over my opinions on life, such as I am of the opinion that old people should not have the right to walk. I believe we should just strap them to a chair and just wait for their inevitable death. But those videos actually take a long time to make. You know, I can't just throw that opinion out there about old people and not back it up with like good evidence and resources, you know what I mean? Like, my opinion of old people and that they shouldn't have the right to walk doesn't just come out of thin air, you know what I mean? Comes from me wanting to drive 100 miles per hour down a one-way street and not have to stop so some grandma can cross the street like a fucking sloth. I mean, I just want to be able to go 100 miles per hour down a one-way street without having to stop so I kill some fucking grandma. I don't think that's unreasonable, you know what I mean? And I mean, obviously, as you can tell, a lot of time and research goes into me formulating this opinion. I mean, obviously, my opinion of just wanting to strap old people to chairs and just wait for their inevitable death obviously comes with a lot of research time and a lot of facts. And you know, research takes a lot of time, and that's why these videos take so long to make. Okay, jokes aside, these videos actually do take a long time to make. It's not the recording. I can record the video in like an hour. It's just the editing. Editing is a fucking bitch. And the second reason why I'm only able to post once a week is because I am in college, and even though I don't do fucking anything in college and I do the absolute bare minimum, my virgin professors still feel the need to give me homework. I know, isn't it ridiculous that my professors assign me homework while I'm in college? I mean, who do these motherfuckers think they are? My teachers or some shit? Bro, that joke probably bombed so hard. I'm gonna leave it in the video though. But because I'm only able to post these story videos once a week, I want to start posting more for you guys. And because I'm a super genius, I of course came up with something. You see, I'm still gonna post these story videos once a week, probably like every Friday, but also on top of that, I want to start reading some of your guys' stories and giving you guys some like advice. Because I mean, if you're watching my channel, I think you guys need some advice. And don't worry, I'm not just gonna like read the story. I'm gonna add some of my own sick and fucked up point of view on it. I'm gonna really give you guys the best advice I could possibly give. And listen, I know that sounds stupid, and I know probably all of you are like, bro, that's a fucking horrible idea. I don't want to fucking hear any of that shit. If you guys ever watch the Bill Burr Monday Morning podcast, it's basically gonna be like that. What I'm basically trying to do is rip off a famous comedian, Bill Burr, do exactly what he does except significantly worse, but somehow still get the same amount of views, if not more views. You guys might not understand what I'm saying right now, but I'm basically gonna read your situation or story and give you guys some of my fucked up advice. If that doesn't make any sense to you, which it probably doesn't, just watch the next video, okay? It'll probably make sense then. But to do this, I need your guys' stories or situations, so if you've got something you need advice on, you can either DM me on Instagram or you can email me. I'll leave both in the description below. Yes, I'm back on Instagram. Listen, I deleted the app because if we're being honest, I was spending 10 hours a day looking at thoughts. My girlfriend, if you're watching this, I have an addiction. I can't help it. So you can either DM me on Instagram or email me. I'll leave both of them in the description. And if you don't care, well, I'll just end up killing myself and my entire family. And if you don't want to watch those videos, you don't have to, because I'm still going to be posting these stories, so don't worry. Anyways, though, finally, let's get into today's video. Okay, but before we do get into the video, remember when I told everyone that if they didn't give a fuck about my channel that they should skip this part of the video? But watch this, I'm gonna fuck with them. 3, 2, 1. And this kid just came all over my face. I mean, I could barely breathe. It was fucking insane. Yeah, that's what you get if you skip the video. Okay, that kind of backfired on me. That just made me seem really sus. If you skip the video and have no idea what's happening, don't worry. So this is the story of how I ran and evaded from the cops, ultimately to get caught and fucked in the shower by a 6'5" black man. Okay. So it wasn't actual jail or the cops. It was school jail and yard supervisors. But let me tell you something, okay? Elementary school jail was a hard place. And so all of this happened in first grade. And in first grade, let's just say I was a completely different person. Believe it or not, in first grade, I was a huge teacher's pet. Yes. me. The same guy who believes that we should strap old people to chairs and wait for them to die used to be a huge teacher's pet. I mean, I was the kid that would sit in the very back of the classroom, and if I heard a fucking whisper out of you or a cough, I would give you the loudest shh you've ever heard in your entire life. I mean, the only way to really describe what I was like back then is by saying that I was a cocksucker. And listen, I don't mean that in the sense that I was like gay, and I'm not trying to say that as like a homophobic insult or something like that. All I'm trying to say is that if my teachers asked me to, I would have sucked them dry. I mean, legitimately, if my teachers asked me back then to get on my knees and suck their penis, I probably would have done it. And you may be wondering how I stopped being a cocksucker, and the answer is a big black guy made me stop. This will all make sense, I promise. Just please let me explain. And you know, I was a pretty much a normal first grader. I was small, annoying, and also a fucking pimp. If you guys watch my videos, you already know that my ego is the size of Shaq's penis. But back in elementary school, I seriously was a pimp. And I don't mean that in the sense that I owned women at the age of 6. I mean that in the sense that, like, I pulled bitches in first grade. I mean, so much so that I actually had a stalker named Julia, and Julia used to follow me everywhere and did everything that I did. But you see, here's the thing with Julia. Julia was so goddamn ugly that I actually used to think that she had a disability. I mean, there was nothing like actually wrong with the girl. I mean, she could talk normally, she had no problem understanding things, and she was actually pretty smart. But the fact of the matter is, she looked like goddamn Dobby from Harry Potter. Actually, saying that is like low-key disrespectful to Dobby. I mean, this girl could have gone to the carnival and people would have paid to see just how ugly this human being was. And so Julia used to follow me around everywhere and did everything that I did. And so this one day during lunch, I decided that I was gonna play basketball. And of course, Julia, Dobby looking ass, came and followed me and wanted to watch me play. And listen, okay, sports in elementary school were the most important thing in the entire world. Like, back then, I would rather have my mom go through a miserable death of cancer. Like, I'm talking to the point where, like, every day she's begging to just die. But I mean, I would much rather have my mom go through that miserable death of cancer than actually lose a game of lunch basketball. But I mean, back then, I would much rather have my mom go through that miserable death where she's just begging people to end her suffering than lose a lunch basketball game in elementary school. I mean, these games meant the entire world. And so anyways, I'm playing in this basketball game, and Dobby looking ass bitch came and followed me. And so I'm playing this basketball game at lunch, and this is something that I honestly will never forget. So I'm playing this basketball game, and one of the kids starts talking shit to me. You know, this kid's like, bro, you're bad at basketball. I'm so much better than you. And listen, back in elementary school, those were fighting words. Actually, scratch that. Those weren't even fighting words. Those were like, go home, grab a gun, and just like shoot this kid in the face words. And you know me, I'm not gonna let some 6-year-old talk shit to me, okay? I mean, back then, saying that was basically the equivalent of like murdering my mother. And so after this kid says that, I get the ball, I break this kid's ankles, he goes off to Mars, and you know, I'm going up for this easy layup. And this is the shot that I would usually make 100% of the time. But after I just broke this kid's ankle, I go up for this layup, and as I'm going up for this layup, I look in front of me and I see this fucking gargoyle-like creature staring at me. And being a 6-year-old child at the time, I mean, I shit myself and I completely missed the layup. You see, the thing was, Julia was so goddamn ugly that I thought a monster had spawned in front of me and was about to kill me. And listen, yes, I was a teacher's pet at the time, but I had just broke this kid's ankles who was talking shit to me and then missed the layup. I mean, that's like the worst thing that could possibly happen to you. And so I'm fucking pissed at Julia for just having the audacity to be around me being that ugly. But you know, I was the teacher's pet back then, and I tried to control my emotions. And so I went up to Julia and I was like, bitch, if you keep following me with that Dobby ass Harry Potter face, I'm gonna bury you in the fucking ground. And so Julia starts crying her eyes out, and she goes to the yard supervisor, who was like a mom who volunteered her time to like watch 5-year-olds at recess. That is probably the worst job on the planet. But Julia Julia goes up to the supervisor and she's like, he called me Dobby. Now listen, at our school, if you got in trouble, the supervisor would either give you a red or a yellow card. And a yellow card was just basically a warning, but a red card meant that you had to go to prison. I'm not even exaggerating here. My elementary school literally had a section next to the basketball court where if you got a red card, you had to go there and spend the rest of lunch there. And it was literally called the jail. And it was horrible because there was like no walls or fences and it was just like a chalk line. And so all the other kids would just be staring at you during lunch. And they would always be like laughing at you and like calling you names. And I even remember this one time some kid threw a fucking tomato at one of the kids in there like it was like a Shakespearean play or some shit. Like it was humiliating, you know what I mean? And so obviously I had never been to jail. I mean, I never even got a red or yellow card. And I don't really know if it was the fact that I called Julia a mystical elf or if it was the fact that I said that I wanted to bury her in the ground. But immediately the yard supervisor came up to me and gave me a red card. And I was shocked because like I was the teacher's pet, okay? I never got in trouble. This shouldn't be happening to me, you know? I don't belong with those animals in jail. I was the kid that would go up to the jail and talk shit to the kids that were in there. And so the supervisor comes up to me and escorts me to the jail, and not surprisingly, the only black kid in our school was there too. Okay, hold on. That came across extremely racist. That's not how I intended it to come off. It's got nothing to do with race, okay? I'm just saying the only black kid in our school, Nick, for some reason was always in jail, and so it wasn't surprising to see him there. I'm on very thin ice right now. And as you'll come to learn, Nick actually ended up having the single greatest impact of anyone in my entire life. And so I get escorted to this jail, and it's just me and Nick, right? And you know, at first I didn't really want to talk to Nick because I mean, I didn't really associate with his kind of people back then. Troublemakers. I didn't associate with troublemakers. I am on very thin ice right now. But eventually Nick comes up to me and he's like, hey man, is this your first time? And I was like, yeah. And then Nick's like, don't worry about it, bro. It ain't as bad as it seems. And then he looked at me and he was like, what you in for, bro? And I was like, I regret saying it, but I called Julia Dobby from Harry Potter and then said that I wanted to bury her in the ground. And then Nick was like, man, don't regret that shit. That's bullshit. She do be looking like Dobby. How can you get in trouble for telling the truth? And after he said that, I was like, you know what? I don't gotta feel bad for telling the truth. I mean, this bitch looks like a half-aborted fetus. What do you want me to say? And that was honestly the first time in my life where I was like, you know, maybe I don't have to be a teacher's pet. You know, maybe Nick's right. And so then I asked Nick and I was like, hey Nick, what are you in for? And then he was like, oh, I punched a kid in the face. And then I was like, maybe we'll hold off on this whole not being a teacher's pet thing. And so then I asked Nick and I was like, you know, well, why did you punch the kid? And Nick was like, oh, he said I was bad at basketball. I mean, what do you want me to do? I had to fight the kid. Listen, okay, there's not a whole lot of good reasons to punch a 6-year-old child in the face, but if a 6-year-old comes up to you and says that you're bad at basketball, you have every right to knock the fuck out of that kid. And in that moment, after Nick said that, I realized that Nick wasn't a troublemaker. He was just misunderstood, you know what I mean? And him saying that also made me remember that I had to leave the basketball game to go to this jail, and that the basketball game was still going on and my team probably needed me. And so I looked at Nick and I was like, fuck man, I was playing basketball when I got the red card. My team's probably losing. And then Nick looked at me and he was like, you can't lose a basketball game. And then he got like really serious and he was like, I've been thinking about something, but you can't tell anyone, okay? You gotta promise me. And I looked at him and I was like, okay, what is it? And then Nick was like, okay, can't tell anyone, but I've been thinking about escaping. I've been thinking about a way out of this place. Now, listen, I need to add some context here. The jail wasn't really a jail, okay? It was just like a 10 by 10 section of like chalk lines. But for some reason, it never really occurred to anyone that you could just like escape, you know what I mean? Like, it didn't really occur to anyone that you could just like step over the chalk lines and then like escape, you know what I mean? I didn't even think escaping was an option. I thought it was impossible. And so Nick goes through this whole escape plan, and honestly, back then I thought this kid was a genius. Like, back then I thought this kid went home, had like layouts of the jail taped to his wall, never slept, just constantly 24/7 thought about this escape plan. Like, that's how good I thought this escape plan was. Looking back on it now, the plan literally consisted of us running full speed as fast as possible. That was it. Like, there wasn't even a supervisor watching the jail. All we had to do was run, and no one would probably even give a fuck. And that's what we ended up doing. And it took a long time for us to finally, like, build up the courage to do it, but we ended up doing it. And it was in that moment where we were escaping from this jail that all of my innocence go away. You know what I mean? Like, I felt this, like, weight of innocence just like leave my body. And I remember in that moment being like happier than I ever previously was in my entire life. Like, it was honestly pretty remarkable. Unfortunately, we were caught in like 5 seconds, being that Nick was the only black kid in our school. And I mean, it was pretty easy to see 2 6-year-olds all out sprinting, screaming as loud as possible. And the yard supervisor ended up catching us, and she was like holding both of our arms. And the craziest thing happened. The yard supervisor looked at me and she was like, "Was Nick chasing you? What did he do to you? Was he trying to hurt you?" You see, she didn't think we were like just escaping from the jail. She thought that I was running away from Nick because he was like trying to hurt me or something. And in that moment, I felt bad for Nick because he wasn't a troublemaker. He wasn't a bad guy. Like, yeah, he punched a couple kids, but I mean, that doesn't make you a bad guy. You know what I mean? And I just felt bad that he had this bad reputation going around. And in that moment, I decided that me being a teacher's pet was officially over. And I looked at the yard supervisor and I completely sold Nick's ass out. I was like, "Yes, he was chasing me. He was gonna hit me. It was all his fault." Like, yeah, I had this revelation, but I wasn't gonna get in trouble for escaping jail because of this revelation. And actually, you know, turns out Nick was on this like 3-stripe program, and that was his 3rd strike, and so he ended up getting suspended because he chased me. What you gonna do? Moral of the story, don't judge a book by its cover. I thought Nick was a troublemaker. Turns out he was a really good guy. It's a shame he got suspended, but I mean, he shouldn't have been chasing me. Alright, that's gonna do it for today's video, guys. If you enjoyed, please leave a like and subscribe, and I'm gonna be posting like more frequently, so look out for that, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.